Hi, my name is Ken Davidian, and welcome to the second season of Organization Theory in Space, or OT in Space. In this season, I'm making a brief video for each of the 36 chapters of the Oxford Handbook of Organizational Change and Innovation, second edition, edited by Marshall Scott Poole and Andy Van de Ven. This video covers chapter 28 of the handbook, entitled Emotionality and Change. In this chapter, we discuss the relevance and role of emotion in the organizational change process, how and why individuals experience emotions in the face of change, and how leadership can better account for the existence and role of emotions while managing the change process. Despite the fact that everybody experiences emotions and that emotions affect the decision-making process when evaluating options, emotions are under-recognized in research and in practice. Interestingly enough, emotions cannot be easily explained with cognitive or structural theories, so they should be included in our theorizing efforts. Emotions are part of a process that begins with a focal individual who is exposed to an illicit stimulus, registers the stimulus for its meaning, and experiences a feeling state and physiological changes with downstream consequences for attitudes, behaviors, and cognitions, as well as facial expressions and other emotionally expressive cues. In the circumplex model of emotions, emotions can vary in valence, either positive or negative, and arousal, either high or low. Excitement is an example of a positive emotion with high arousal. An example of a positive emotion with low arousal includes satisfaction. An example of a negative emotion that is high arousal is anger, and an example of a negative emotion with low arousal is sadness. Emotions help individuals cope with specific situations, and they are not always harmful or beneficial, but must be evaluated according to the context in which they are experienced and how they adapt to the specific situation. Since emotions are based in our evolutionary pursuit to avoid immediate danger in order to survive, emotions tend to focus on short-term outcomes. Individuals feel emotion, but so do groups of individuals, due in part to the social selection and shared identities. What this means is that the emotional outcome to an organizational change might include a range of different emotional reactions, but there will be processes that focus emotions to the level of subgroups and groups within the organization. Theory on emotionality has a core assumption that collective emotions, or emotions that are shared by many individuals, matter more than personal emotions in organizational change. This is due to the critical mass of groups and their ability to influence change in contrast to an individual's ability to influence change. There are three core mechanisms for collective emotion generation. First is exposure to similar situations, which puts individuals into the same contexts. Second is the social identification with the organization that focuses the emotions of individuals on the organization's goals or well-being. And third is emotional contagion, conveyed through nonverbal and unconscious cues. These are three mechanisms that can lead to collective emotions. Emotions can change over time, and three emotional phases can be identified in the change process. First, change leader emotions contribute to the initiation of change. Second, there are emotions in the change recipient as a response to the identified change. And third, come the emotions of the change leader and recipients that accumulate over time as the change is initiated and progresses. The change leader's emotions will impact the type of change they think is needed by the organization, whether they feel threatened by the external environment or whether they feel excited about possibilities of new activities. Emotions absolutely influence managers' abilities to make decisions. Studies show that positive emotions enable leaders to think more creatively, and a feeling of safety from threats allow managers to think more broadly. Once the change plans are communicated to the organization, these plans are interpreted by individuals, and these then influence the collective emotion. One popular method for stimulating change includes creating a sense of urgency or crisis, but research is not conclusive whether this is an effective approach in reality. Once the change process is in full swing, emotions are generated in individuals and collectives, and these accumulate and change over time. Managing the change in collective emotions is a complicated task because the change process is assisted and made smooth by long-duration positive emotions. The opposite is also true, where long-duration negative or resistive emotions make the change process more difficult. Emotions can be prolonged as long as the individual and the organization are not underexposed or overexposed to the change stimuli. Theory of organizational emotionality management is mostly conceptual and inductive, but it is based on a well-developed base of psychological studies at the individual and group levels. There are 5 streams of research to improve our understanding of emotionality and organizational change. The first is to better understand how organizational structures, practices, and processes relate to organizational emotionality. The second investigates the temporality of organizational emotions, how multiple emotions co-evolve and change over time. Third is the need for better understanding of the psychological assumptions, dimensions, and qualities of change leaders. Fourth is the need to incorporate recent work in appreciative inquiry or positive organizational scholarship. Finally, emotionality research can be extended to include inter-organizational contexts. There are research-based practices that organizational leaders can use to effectively manage the individual and collective emotions as part of a coordinated change process. One of the most used practices includes effective rhetoric and sense-giving of a change process by the leaders to the organizational members. Intentional messaging of organizational changes is an effective way to reduce resistance to change. Also, managers need to recognize the reality of negative emotions and enact practices to reduce the harmful effects that could result from them. Another method reminds me of good cop, bad cop, where different managers can use different and alternating techniques to help bolster positive emotions or minimize negative emotions. Another practice is to ensure transparency in communication, so all levels of management and staff are aware of concerns and situations of the others. That's it from this chapter. I hope you found it as interesting as I did. If you want to make sure you don't miss any future videos from this season of Organization Theory in Space, please consider hitting the subscribe button or the notification bell. Thanks! OT in Space was produced by IRL, which stands for Impossible Research LLC. IRL conducts process research on the topics of innovation and industry emergence within the space sector context. IRL also offers services of organization theory consulting, research consulting, and STEAM outreach. This video is intended for educational purposes only.